That's inexcusable. Inexcusable. Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game. Another game.
You are listening to The Review on the OSG Sports Podcasting Network.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Review. It's the Online Sports Guys college football podcast featuring us, the Online Sports Guys. You got me, OSG Phil. You got OSG Wilkie, OSG J-Dub making an appearance after week one.
We found him, y'all.
After a 12-week hiatus, he returns.
Rumors of my death are highly exaggerated.
How was that vacation?
I'm still on it, actually.
J-Dub is our alpha and our omega, our first episode and our last of the season.
Come full circle.
Guys, might as well go straight to the point here. We're recording this on the day before the college football playoff championship game featuring the Washington Huskies and the Michigan Wolverines after two incredibly entertaining semifinal games. And we'll just kind of cut straight to the chase. Who you got?
For the title game?
Yeah.
Well, I think
we got to tease that shit for the end.
You can't make them wait. Make them wait for it.
I didn't know it was relying on me here. But look, I think this is going to be one of the best title games since the inception of the college football playoff. It's a great matchup. It's going to be a conference game next year. To me, there's two matchups here that are going to determine the game. Washington's offensive line against Michigan's front four on defense, which are both elite, and those elite receivers for Washington going against a pretty good defensive backfield of Michigan. To me, that's worth the price of admission to me, to watch those two units go after it. If I got to pick, I'm going to go with the Huskies because of chunk plays. That offense is big play oriented. If Michigan can control the ball with their running game, which could possibly happen with Washington's being a little weak on the run defense end, then that's going to be Michigan's best defense, is to keep the ball and run the clock. I just love the way Washington is playing. They've been in close games. I read a stat where Washington has over 10 sixth-year players on their team, and they played close games throughout the year. And so if
Michigan
it's a
has
close
quite
game,
a number of COVID kids.
So I kind of like the fact that Washington is mature. They've been in those close games. There's no panic in them. There's a lot of intangibles there that I really like the Huskies to win the national title. And wouldn't that be a great big FU by the Pac-12 if they ring out their if they go down with a national championship in football?
Oh, I'm down for any FU that involves Michigan losing. I think you're right with the receiver matchup. During the Ohio State game, you frequently had some receivers running open that the quarterback wasn't getting to that read. Not so much from his line, but through some not hitting his progressions like he should. And I think that's going to be the difference, because Michigan's strongest thing that they're going to throw at Washington, that Washington is susceptible to, is the run. But if somebody's just chucking bombs and scoring, you can't keep running if someone's going to run it up through the air.
Hey, J-Dub,
Plus, cheaters never prosper, so screw them.
Yep.
Did you ever think did you think a couple of years ago when we were still doing the show that we in Washington was I wouldn't say a disaster, but they were struggling under former head coach Jimmy Lake, that we would be talking about the Huskies just 2 years later playing in the national championship game?
Not at all. I remember back when I was living out in Washington State and being around the Huskies and the Washington State Cougars for as long as I have. This to me is surprising. But you have to look at a couple of different things. Michael Penix Jr. is playing with a chip on his shoulder, right? They're looking at him, looking past him. Oh, he's had ACL injuries. He's not going to be able to be the quarterback of the future. But he's got a chip on his shoulder. Look what he did last week against Texas. Look at what I think taking a step back, 30,000 foot view, like Wilkie talked about positions. I'm also talking about positions because Penix Jr. and JJ McCarthy. Look at both of those people. Who wants it more? And you also look at coaching between Kalen DeBoer and Jim Harbaugh, right? I am unapologetically not a Jim Harbaugh fan. And I think that, cheaters should never prosper and get rewarded in this league. So in my heart of hearts, go ahead, Marty.
No, I was going to say, whenever you say Michigan coaching, you kind of have to couch that with / advanced scouting.
Yep, exactly. And to Phil's point, does Washington deserve to be here? Would we have talked about Washington at the beginning of the year? No, but the way they're playing their best football right now, and with all the offensive weapons on both teams, there's the old adage: offense wins games, defense wins championships. And I honestly think Washington's defense is deep enough to be able to give J.J. McCarthy and Blake Corum some issues, and I think that they're going to come up big, and I've got the Huskies in this one.
It's interesting to me, just having watched the Michigan-Alabama game. I didn't get to watch much of the Texas-Washington game. It was surprising to me to see how Michigan played Alabama and basically played man ball against them and actually beat them at that game, which is something nobody ever does to Alabama.
Well, there
was a fair mix of Bama beating themselves, though.
Yeah, but this is where Marty and Brother J-Dub are probably going to disagree with me because I feel the hatred or the vitriol toward Jim Harbaugh, and it's there, and I tend to agree with you guys on that. But I thought this was his best coaching game because he's probably one of the first non-SEC guys, coaches that played Alabama's game. And yes, there were some wounds, self-inflicted wounds by Alabama in the game. But Jim Harbaugh told his guys, look, you line guys, you got to dictate the terms here. And that defensive front four did for the most part against Alabama's offensive line. So I can recall that he's the only one that has stressed that rather than the skill players, and it worked. And that's one point where I see, okay, maybe Jim Harbaugh has matured a little bit, or just knew basically what he had to do to beat Alabama and stress that. So I thought it was his best coaching on the college level for a game prep since he took the Michigan job. Now it's a totally different animal against Washington because he's going up against a big play offense with an elite quarterback, an elite set of receivers, an elite offensive line, and a running game that is serviceable and gets the job done. And so now it's going to be even more pressure on the defensive front four to get penetration when Washington does run the game, have a running game, and who are they going to double up on the for Washington's wide receivers? Who's going to get doubled up? Who's going to get linebacking coverage? This is going to be where we're going to find out if Jim Harbaugh can adjust from one game to the other successfully. But I thought he had a really great coaching effort in the Alabama game.
But a lot of the success came from the troubles Bam was having up front, and I'm unsure. Like, that center has been there for 3 years.
Yeah.
And previously, all of his grading out at the end of the season, his Pro Football Focus grades were high. Now he lost the guards on either side of him, so I'm unsure if it's, did he have some sort of mental block going on because he had new guys next to him and he wasn't quite getting, was he trying to work? Was he worrying about each side of him instead of just calling the shots up front and minding his business, or was he worried a little bit too much on the side? Because you could tell it affected him the whole game. How many bad snaps were there? I mean, the game ends on a bad snap.
And also Michigan was slapping their pads when Alabama was on offense. So, which is not illegal, but kind of on the border of that. And that could have thrown him off because he hear pad slapping. He may have flinched a little bit, and then that caused him to snap the ball bad. So
they did get penalized for doing that last year.
Yep, they did. But that was clapping with their hands. This is more with your pads, and they got away with it.
Again, Jim Harbaugh, thank you so much for skirting the line of what's right and what's wrong.
Hey, you don't have to like or agree with what he did, but that team was ready to play against Alabama, and they did some things to the Crimson Tide that the Georgia Bulldogs the week before in the SEC, or a couple weeks before in the SEC championship game couldn't do.
Yep.
And that's disrupt the flow of Alabama's offense.
Yeah, but Georgia this week has credibility, and will be playing next year with their full coaching staff, should they choose.
Well, that being said, no offense to Brother Nelson, I have to ask this question. With what happened with Michigan and Alabama, and what Wilkie just said with best coaching game for Harbaugh, how would that have looked had the CFP committee chosen Florida State for that position instead of Alabama? Because what Georgia did to the Seminoles, to me, I mean, I just that whole
that's
Mike Norvell falling down. I mean, I don't think you would have had the same conversation, Wilkie, had Florida State been there instead of Nick Saban in Alabama.
But we would have had a full strength Florida State squad.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't have had like the biblical exodus that they had before that bowl game.
Which is not to say that Florida State would have been able to put up the same fight either, because they're still without their best quarterback, and that would have made a difference in the game. But at the same time, we've talked about this in the last couple of episodes. They earned the opportunity just by running the table.
Yeah. And then, if they're in the playoff, they're not playing with their hearts already ripped out and people already quitting. Because, I mean, you're losing that Georgia game before you even get there, because everybody's attitude is poor going into that. Yep. No matter how, strong the culture is there, it's hard to overcome like that much loss of people.
Mm-hmm.
That many people just leave.
And as a former player, I absolutely hate people who say, I'm not playing in the bowl game. If you're not a first round pick, if you're not in one of the first 32 to go in the NFL draft, you play that game. Whether it's Georgia, Florida State, I don't care what you are. You're there under scholarship potentially to support a program and make that program better. So I think that's a different soapbox. I'll step off now. But you wear their uniform, you play the game.
Yeah, well, one of the things we talked about last week, and I'll ask you this question, Brother J-Dub. With the transfer portal and early signing coming in the middle of December,
just call it free agency.
So many people bailed out of their bowl games, and would moving that solve part of that problem? Pushing back the transfer portal into the first of the year, having National Signing Day be just a February event like it used to be several years ago.
I absolutely think, before I get started, kill the transfer portal. That's just it's ruining college football. That's just me. But I think that if you move it back, make February the day it is, instead of saying, oh, I know I'm going to be doing this now. I've already signed my NIL deal over here. I'm not going to play the bowl game. It changes the entire complexity of the landscape. The whole paradigm that is college football is changed because of, I need to rest so I can improve my draft stock, or I need to rest because I'm the franchise quarterback over here. It's killing the game. And yes, I think it needs to be moved in order to make bowl season relevant again.
Oh, sure.
Because as good as the two bowl games we had between the top four were, that Georgia-Florida State game would have been awesome had both teams been at that quarterback would have stayed full strength. It killed it. It killed it.
That quarterback knew he's going to, when before that bowl game, he knows somebody else is coming. He's definitely leaving that. But, you take that out of the mix, then he's like, you know what? Even if I do leave, I ball out in this game against Georgia, I'm going to go somewhere nicer.
But then you look at the positive of that. Check about Miller Moss in USC.
Yeah.
It's next man up, right? Showcased who he is because of someone like a Caleb Williams not playing. So there is that other side to the pillow. That is
and it changed the plans. It changed the plans of Will Howard, who was going to go there, transfer the Southern Cal, and all of a sudden, we got Miller Moss here, so he ends up going to another school.
I was at that Holiday Bowl, and I can't tell you if I had a nickel for every time everybody kept saying, "Who's that guy?"
But yeah, I didn't mean to sidetrack our conversation. I had to bring it up.
Well,
you're trying to bring the bowl games. It's that season.
I wanted to bring up a thought to along your thoughts, J-Dub, on the fact of the transfer portal and NLI or the players getting paid. I think you're going to start seeing a lot of veteran coaches, head coaches in college football start leaving because of what's going on with the transfer portal and the name license and imaging. And I also think that college is going to become either bypassed or a stepping stone for a lot of these upcoming coaches and go into the NFL because they could have a life. In college, it's hard to have a life when you recruit players, but you don't know if they're committed, and you're having to go through a transfer portal as well. And you just, again, you don't know if these players are committed to your program. At least in the NFL, you sign a long-term contract. And I think that is what's going to drive coaches out of the business and in part affect the quality of college football. I think that is coming next unless something is done with those two elements. I mean, coaches are they have no time to themselves. They're constantly seeing who's committed, who's not, and they're having to deal with guys who are getting paid more than them. I think it's a vicious circle going on right now, and I wouldn't be shocked. Everybody's talking about Nick Saban maybe retiring. That would be reason why he would retire. Is he just who's committed to him? How much time does he have to devote to recruiting and then looking at the transfer portal and all that good stuff?
Yeah,
you think
go ahead.
No, just saying, you look at how the game changed. 20 years ago, coaches didn't have to worry about kids. You say, "Oh, I'm not getting playing time. I'm leaving." And they could coach the game, manage their team and their assets and their boosters, be able to go out and just draft or not draft, to go out and find people, sit at their tables and say, you're going to be a Michigan Wolverine for the next 4 years. That changes the complexity of the game. So if I'm going to be managing a business, right, which is what this college football is becoming, why not do it in the pros? A, get paid more money. B, like Wookie said, have a life. I think, you're going to see, think about Jay Wright. Jay Wright, Villanova basketball, do the same thing. I'm like, I'm out. I'm done. I got 10 years left of coaching. I'm tired of this. And I think that you're going to see the same mass exodus in football. Absolutely.
It's interesting you bring up college basketball, J-Dub, because this is kind of what happened when the one and done rule came in effect in college basketball, and it affected rosters where basically programs like Duke and Kentucky that had to maintain that legendary status had to have completely new teams each year. And that's what we're seeing in college football. Interesting. The transfer portal and NLI actually is helping college basketball keep their rosters intact a little longer because there's so limited jobs in professional basketball. And actually some of these guys are going to make probably the most money they're going to make in college than they would be if they went on to the NBA or played in Europe. And
in all honesty,
overseas.
you got less payers do you have to play. You have to pay to keep a decent team.
To bring this thing back full circle, to use this analogy, any of the four teams that actually, let's look at all four teams. Did they have very many players that they received out of the transfer portal? Like how much between Washington, Texas, Michigan, and Alabama was affected because of the transfer portal?
Well, Washington obviously with
Washington
Penix.
Yeah. Michigan had some. A lot of their linemen on both sides of the ball were through the portal. They mostly grew their own, but there are exceptions to that in every position.
And they've got a lot of 24-year-olds playing as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the COVID the COVID restrictions are that helped. You got your 6th and 7th year players. We're coming to the tail end of that. So you've got 25, 26-year-olds still playing college football that career started in 2018. So,
I'm a man. I'm 40.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. I mean, that's where you saw a lot of people losing people in the portal. Like, Ohio State lost quite a few people, but they were also Jesse Mirko, 24, and he's still got a year of eligibility. You got a punter, 22, 2 more years left of eligibility. It's crazy. And, I was thinking as you're bringing up pros and, coaches leaving for that, how far away are we from colleges trading players?
Well, we're in the
Because I can't tell you that, like, there's got to be a couple hoodwink things going on. And then
Good
I've
God,
been hearing,
last thing we need is a trade deadline.
I've been hearing like suggestions.
we're talking about we're basically talking about free agency at this
Yeah,
point.
I mean, call it what it is. It's not transfer portal. It's 2 free agent windows.
And then
I saw something on Twitter yesterday that made me laugh, but it made sense. They're like, well, why doesn't Ohio State just get a collective to help the MAC schools so that when they get a senior that's in a position to help the bigger school, that he transfers out and fills a need for 1 year at a bigger school? And I was just sitting there going, that's dumb. And then I'm like, it's AAA.
No,
that's a farm system. Absolutely.
It's dumb, but it's right, and it's what's done. I mean, I'm trying to think. There was a kid from Troy, right tackle. Oh no, left tackle, but he could play either side. Dude's 6'8", 310. He just got offered by 3 big schools, and small conference. Last year goes to the big conference. He's in the show.
Yeah, that's kind of the system that we're heading towards, where you're going to see guys bouncing between the Power 5 and the Group of 5, just because
Chip Kelly for commissioner of the NCAA.
Yeah,
Fire everybody else. Just let him call the
basketball.
You're going to get one group of people who's looking for an opportunity for more playing time and may move down to the Group of 5 in order to do that. But you're also you're going to see Group of 5 players who show or have things that the Power 5 are looking for that are going to move up, and that's how it's going to play itself out.
Yeah, that's been going on in college basketball for 15 years now.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, just
Especially
go full
when grad transfers was in chic. A lot of those guys would graduate from their mid-major school and play 1 year on a major school. So it's just now getting to college football, and that's where people are going, scratching their head, going. I think the big reason they want to do this is because to prevent the multiple transfers. Someone like a DJ Uiagalelei, who's gone from Clemson to Oregon State and now Florida State.
Yeah,
and has another year of eligibility. That's what they're trying to curb. And I don't know if legally it can happen, but I mean, this is just a mess. It's the Wild West. It's
just adopt the soccer.
We're all pulling our hair out, wondering who's going to be on. Yeah, adopt the soccer. We're all pulling our hair out, wondering who's going to be on the rosters for next year.
Oh, looks like Wilkie and J-Dub both have thought about this one because they've pulled more hair than. Oh wait, there we go. Phil's pulled the most. I'm pulling a little bit. I'm only pulling it in the back.
Yeah. Guys,
I mean, seriously, like, what doesn't make sense about taking soccer structure of multiple leagues that everybody's getting paid throughout that league, just on different levels?
Yeah,
it's heading that way.
I think that's where we're going to end up. And before we wrap up the block, I wanted to circle back to something before we got off into this conversation about eligibility and transfers and all that. We talked about non-competitive bowl games, and J-Dub mentioned that. The bowl games outside of the playoff games doesn't really matter because we had the Pop-Tarts Bowl. Everything else pales in comparison to that. The game itself is almost meaningless, but the post game, top notch.
Quick question: who played in it?
NC State and Kansas State.
Yes.
Yep. I can't tell you any highlights outside of a dancing Pop-Tart,
taking
mascot cannibalism, sparks flying.
Mascot cannibalism.
But speaking of meaningless bowl games, one of my friends was the PA announcer for the Duke's Mayo Bowl, and they were giving out cups full of mayonnaise with chocolate sauce in it, and they were eating that.
Ew.
I'm just saying that was kind of nasty. But I don't know if it was nastier than the North Carolina-West Virginia matchup or what. But yeah, I would not eat a cup of mayonnaise. Just
Buc-ee's, if you're listening, we want you to sponsor a bowl game. I don't care if it's for high school kids. I'm in.
Everybody gets beef jerky.
I'll even be the mascot.
And you're getting to what they've become. They've become gimmicks.
Yep.
Who has the biggest gimmick now? And 18 to 20-year-old kids are going to love it.
But they're not going to watch the game. They're going to watch a TikTok or a YouTube
Yeah,
short.
exactly.
You got to find a way to draw attention.
But think back in the day,
with such a crowded lineup of 40 plus games, you got to do something in order to get people to pay attention to you.
Yeah.
So why not?
Now that's one thing what the playoffs going to do next year with all those bowl games being playoffs. I guarantee you, all those ones are going to be records setting crowds for that first round. Yeah, well, the first round going to be on campus, but the second round that's going to be all bowl games. Those are all going to sell.
yeah, and the one bowl game I took part in was the Poulon Weed Eater Independence Bowl back in the day. But then you look at my Jayhawks were in the Guaranteed Rate Bowl. I'm like, really?
Hey, if I get to take home a decent mortgage from going to that game, I'm in.
Yeah,
I'll refi while I'm there.
Forward, bowl games should be sponsored by food products.
Yes.
Or cartoon characters.
Are you listening, Bucky's?
And Bucky's is both.
I am in the
Buc-ee's is
3
both.
meat bowl all day long.
The brisket
the
sandwich bowl.
barbecue brisket. I like that. I can just see that logo on the 50 right now.
Man, you know, throw up
Imagine
one.
the jerseys. Imagine the Jersey Mike's Bowl. Hint, hint. Listen, sponsor.
Oh,
where
Danny
the
DeVito
mascot
doing the
giant
coin
sub.
toss?
Yep.
I just think of the possibilities here.
I'm
Hmm.
completely in this.
Hey, I'm waiting for.
Bring us onto the committee. Let us pick the sponsors.
I'm waiting for one of the alcoholic beverage companies to sponsor a bowl. Then it'll get interesting.
Oh, imagine the Don Julio Tequila Bowl.
Tequila Bowl's got a nice ring to it.
You almost
I
had
know.
that. You almost had that with the LA Bowl.
True.
The whipped cream flavored vodka, infused vodka.
Oh yeah, if you ever want to get John Nelson off on a rant, ask him about the vodka infused whipped cream. And he's not here to defend himself today, although he will be joining us here in the second half of the show. Which, speaking of that, we probably ought to go to timeout here so we can get to the second half of the show.
We've been put in time out.
When we come back, John will give us his picks via the magic of editing because he is at the beach right now. And
He's being such a beach right now. Such a beach. BEACH.
Son of a beach.
Don't give us a parental warning.
We'll talk about some of the other things going on in college football and what you can expect to see in the championship game. All that more when we return for the second half of the review. You are listening to the review on the OSG Sports Podcasting Network.
Please like and subscribe.
Over here in the OSG Sports side of things, we talk football. FOOTBALL. College football version here with the college football review every single week. But for those of you that like not just football with two O's, but football with a U, FUTBOL, there's the Soccer Down Here Network. I'm John Nelson. I host the morning show on Soccer Down Here along with Jarrett Smith, Nick Alifi, Jason Longshore. And if you're looking for the best information when it comes to the world of soccer, based in the southeastern United States, but we don't leave anything off the table. 9:05 Eastern time until 11 whenever. Sometimes we go for a while. SDH Network morning show, soccer's morning show, Monday through Friday, plus all the live events we do. It is your place and your source for soccer that is based in the Southeast, but covers everything on the world. SoccerDownHere.net, the Soccer Down Here app available iOS and Android through our friends at Spreaker. That's like speaker with an R in the middle. Spreaker, do a search for OSG Sports. Do a search for Soccer Down Here. All the soccer content all in one place. It is the SDH Network and Soccer Down Here.
Thanks for sticking around, everybody. You have made it to the second half of the show. And before we get too deep into things here on the second half, we want to toss it over to Brother John, who could not join us as we recorded this, but through the magic of editing, will appear with his thoughts on the championship game, hopefully the FCS championship game as well, and a couple other odds and ends that popped into his devious little mind. John, take it away.
from Parts Unknown. Thanks, guys. And as we look at championships, we're getting to that point. One of the things that I wanted to kind of remind folks is that, yes, we're getting to the end of the college football season. And one of the cool things, and I don't know if you're going to have the chance to partake in all of this, but it's just a reminder. We always talk about supporting local schools and how important that is. I mean, before the Division I championship, it's the 1AA championship. And yes, I just dated myself with that reference. Montana and South Dakota State. And I think that if you haven't seen the D2 title game, if you didn't see the D3 title game, if you're not going to see the FCS title game, I think you're missing out on something. And to see great programs, great communities, all of these programs, Montana with their pedigree, South Dakota State with what they've been able to piece together the last handful of years as almost a dynasty when it comes to 1AA. I think that I would encourage you not to miss out. And we always talk about, like I said, we always talk about supporting local schools. If there's ever a chance where you're away from your favorite Division I program and you have a chance to sample a smaller college or university, do it. Because you get to see what it means to those communities too. And so I think that's just as important as we go. Other notes on the big title game, I think it's going to come down, obviously, to Michigan's defense and forcing Michael Penix into mistakes. And I'm going to go with Washington. I think they're going to go over whatever the total is. So take the total and Washington, and it's going to be a really, I think it's going to cap a fantastic season. And a reminder what Michael Penix has been able to do for Washington, and it will also be the last game for Jim Harbaugh in the college ranks this time around. And do not be surprised if Dean Spanos of the Chargers and if David Tepper of the Carolina Panthers get into some kind of match race to figure out who's going to pay Jim Harbaugh the most money and saddle that franchise with a tremendous price tag on a coach, and the how do we phrase this? The output will not match the amount of money that you've invested in that particular individual. Just saying it right now. So that's my 2 cents from Parts Unknown. Guys, it's back to you.
Guys, we've made it. We're in the second half of, I don't know if it's going to be the last show of the season because, well, there's always stuff to talk about in college football. And I know we talked a whole lot about the championship game in the college football playoff in the first half of the show. But coming up on Sunday, the day before the college football championship playoff game, is the FCS championship game featuring two long-running nemesis powers, strong schools.
Rivals even.
South Dakota State and Montana squaring off not too far down the road from you, Marty.
No, and that is a sold-out show from all I have heard about this. We've been trying to figure out, we've mentioned on previous pods about how do the Dakota schools, there's not a bad team in the Dakotas, North or South.
No.
What are they doing with their recruiting that's making this happen? And then Montana has always been strong. You know, I graduated from Youngstown State. You can see over my shoulder, I got the little helmet up there, and over there you can see a little national championship memorabilia from when it was called 1AA, which you should go back to. But that's going to be a hell of a game.
Yeah, and in the previous decade, from 2011 to 2021, North Dakota State won the title 9 times.
Just this game is going to be a slobber knocker because you look at all these teams. Well, how long South Dakota State's winning record is what, 28 in a row? Are they like a 28 game winning streak?
Yeah.
Haven't lost to an FCS school since 2021. And I think that they're a 14.5 point favorite right now. Yeah, I
checked, yeah.
Yeah, I got the Jackrabbits by 25 at least.
My mind says that. My heart really wants the Grizzlies to win, both because their mascot's named after one of my brothers, and the fact that South Dakota came into Youngstown and kicked the crap out of them in their own stadium. but I mean, they're a buzzsaw. You know, they go up against the Bisons and they slap them around just like they slapped around everybody else. I mean, they're basically, I would really like to see them get into a bowl game and play a Division I school that's got 20 more scholarships than them. I want to see them go heads up with somebody. And I think they could scare a lot more teams than just, group of five. I think they could take out some Power Five.
Oh, I mean, South Dakota State, Mark Gronowski, I almost wanted to say Gronk, but Mark Gronowski is 6'3", 225-pound quarterback. He's thrown for almost 7,500 yards.
Yep, in his career.
Over his career at South Dakota State. And look at you want to talk about a guy who could play at the highest level of college football. One of Gronowski's, and I'm saying it wrong, I know that, I'm sorry, big targets, the tight end for South Dakota State is 6'7", 260.
Yeah, where's he not getting playing time in all of college football?
Yeah.
It's crazy. And
he's a late round draft pick.
And you look at Gronowski's stats for this year, he has had 196 completions out of 286 attempts, with 28 touchdowns and only 4 interceptions on the year.
Christ, I'd take that at Ohio State.
Yeah, how did guys like that fall through the cracks and end up not playing for one of these big schools? Because everything about him that we read in some of the highlights that you see when you look at the highlight reels, it looks like a top level college football quarterback and probable NFL, potentially an NFL draft pick.
And they drafted him. They recruited him out of Naperville, Illinois. So I mean, he's not a Dakota kid. So,
but he's a Midwest kid.
Yep. And I won't talk about the over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns he put up against Youngstown State this year. Sorry.
Thank you. But goodness, do yourself a favor. If you're watching this today, it's Sunday. All the NFL games you're going to watch are going to be people are either sitting or coaches are basically, they already are on the phone before the game telling their wife to start packing crap up because they're going to get fired shortly. This game is going to have a ton of heart. All their players are rested. They've had 2.5 weeks off?
Something like that. Yep.
So everybody's going to be back full health. Everybody's going to be well prepped, and you're not going to see a game with more heart outside of, the other national championship. But I have to say, I like this national championship because nobody's cheating. There's a little more integrity in this game, and it's a little bit more evenly matched.
And combined, they're 27-1. So these two teams are both playing with chips on their shoulders. Montana's got they want to prove that they're relevant, that they deserve to be here, and South Dakota State's trying to preserve their legacy, their
legacy.
Legacy. That's what I'm thinking about. They're trying to solidify, hey, we deserve to be back-to-back champions.
Yeah, Marty mentioned NFL games, the NFL Sunday games. The only 2 games I think that even mean anything are the Dolphins and Buffalo Bills game, which isn't until Sunday night, and maybe the Falcons in New Orleans, but that game's going to be brutal. So watch some college football. You'll get a whole lot more enjoyment out of it. Watch the FCS championship game.
That's on your local ABC affiliate, I believe.
It is. The
3-letter version of the 4-letter.
Yes. Guys, we started off the show talking about the big game, the college football playoff championship. And I know a couple of you got your shot in at who's going to win. I didn't get a chance to get mine in, so I'm going to mention that here. I think Michigan wins this game. I don't like saying that. But I think that after seeing what they did physically to Alabama, I don't know that Washington's got quite the same level of physicality that the Wolverines do. And I think at the end of the day, that running game with Blake Corum is going to be a little bit more than Washington can handle, but I think it's going to be a good game. I think it's going to be close. And I would not be surprised to see both teams score 30 points. You're looking at maybe a 35-31 nail biter here.
Yeah, I can see that happening.
Yep. I could too.
The great equalizer is if Washington starts hitting them through the air, which I think Michigan is susceptible to.
Mm-hmm.
There were some teams that had, people running free, but they just didn't quite connect on it. And I think Penix is where it's gonna be the difference here.
Arguably, Penix could be.
My heart and my mind really want Washington to win this.
He could very well be the best quarterback that the Wolverines are going to face the entire.
Oh yeah, he got jobbed for the Heisman.
Yep, he did.
I mean, you take a look. This is one of the good things to come out of the transfer portal.
know
Where
about
he played
that.
at Indiana, where he had no help.
I'm not so sure that LSU doesn't wins maybe 5 games if they didn't have Jaden Daniels. It's kind of hard to argue against what Daniels did over the course of the season.
And I think one of the reasons that happened, and you look at what Jaden Daniels did on the ground, and I think that side of his game, Penix is not necessarily his biggest scrambler now because of his ACL injuries, but I think Penix came in second. He was as good as it gets against Texas. You got to think. Yeah, I agree. He got jobbed, but
that trophy's given away too early. That should be a next week thing.
I agree.
No, I think you can. Yeah, there's a reason that no sport gives their most valuable player award after the playoffs, because that could influence and change everything. All of a sudden, somebody comes through and becomes this gigantic stud. They have all the publicity machine behind them for the couple of rounds of the playoffs, and they end up winning, even though they may have had a mediocre regular season.
Isn't that the way it is now? This year is an exception, but I mean, if your team isn't in the playoffs, you're not getting a Heisman.
Oh, if you're not a quarterback.
This is the first time in how long that happened.
Because LSU was not a good football team this year, even with Daniels.
And that was part of my point with Penix is, if he wasn't at Washington, where are they? Middle, are they Colorado? Are they, a 500 team?
You don't know, but you can make that argument for just about anybody.
True.
You have to have a cutoff point at some. You have to have a line to cut it off, and I think at the end of the day, it's the same reason you go through Major League Baseball's regular season. They pick their MVP based on the regular season. The same thing for the NFL. Same thing for the NBA. Why should college football be different and wait until after the championship is decided?
But think about what Marty said earlier. The amount of wins that LSU got, right? Yeah, I'm not disputing that Jaden Daniels is probably the MVP of that team, but is he the best player in college football? You look at what, the winning records. When's the last time a Heisman went to a team that was objectively bad?
LSU still went 9-9. Was it 8-4 or 9-3 over the course of the regular season? They weren't that bad.
Yeah, Washington was undefeated.
I don't know. Penix was I had penciled him in to win, and I was surprised he didn't get it.
Yeah, because he was, he wasn't winning Big Ten awards when he was, at his first stop.
No, at Indiana.
And then he got us a decent supporting cast and a defense, and all of a sudden.
But playing devil's advocate, you could say the same thing about Bo Nix.
Oh, yeah. No, he was high on my list.
Yeah, and Penix's supporting cast is considerably better than what LSU had this season as well. I mean, Oduzne is one of the best wide receivers, arguably is on the same level as Marvin Harrison Jr. when it comes to wide receivers.
We could do 5 more podcasts just on how people are getting overlooked.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We'll do our overlooked weekly update. Might make it a segment.
Yeah, there's always going to be somebody that you can make an argument for that got overlooked or didn't get enough support. But college football is an objective game. Yep. I mean, everything is based around polls, based around ratings,
polls and payoffs,
and based around TV money. But it's always been an objective game. That's why you go on polls as opposed to going based on conference standings or battles between interconference battles. It's never been about.
Here's my question about opinions. Okay, so we've all picked our who we think's going to win the national championship.
Yep.
Let's say Michigan wins, and then the NCAA wins. How's your average person going to view that? Are they going to care?
They're going to. I honestly don't. I think the suspension was it.
You don't think they're going to slap him? Because the NCAA actually seemed pissed about stuff. The fact that they actually gave the Big Ten named allegations and saying that they are cheating. Here's the stuff we can give you so far. I've never seen that happen before.
So you think if Michigan wins, everything's gonna be swept under the rug just to hit a reset button? I think
they're
might
be. I'm thinking they're going to get slapped.
Well, I'm thinking they should get slapped.
If they don't get slapped, all hell's going to break loose next year. Because if you can win a national championship and
do what he did,
to care about doing anything, Jesus.
Here's kind of the catch to that, though.
Alabama's going to get their own NSA.
It's commonly known in college football. Almost everybody does that to some extent.
Yeah, not to that extent.
Nobody else is stupid enough to get caught.
Yeah. You should be suspended just for being that dumb. But also the integrity. Jesus. You got a guy who's, he wasn't cheating for us. He just happened to, he makes 35 grand a year. And he started an LLC with Blake Corum the day that his, was it $800,000 house on Lake Michigan was purchased and paid off. And his parents' two mortgages were paid off the exact same day. You can't tell me that that's not illegal somewhere.
Talk to anybody who is part of on the staff of a college football team way off the record.
Oh, yeah. No, I know. But the level they were doing that at, it was just, you need to smack that.
Going back to Tennessee last year, bags of McDonald's. Absolutely. They're happening. They're happening everywhere.
And that's a little bit different.
You don't need the McDonald's bag anymore, though.
Yeah, one, you don't need to do that anymore.
You just get them a deal with McDonald's.
I will say this, going to Phil's point, if Michigan wins, I think one thing happens that guarantees nothing happens with the NCAA. If Jim Harbaugh wins the national championship, he will be coaching in the NFL next year.
Oh, yeah.
He might be coaching if he loses. There's rumors going around that he's already got an agent.
Oh, no,
he tried to do it last year. He walked into his interview acting like he already got the job, and it pissed off the owners.
Yeah.
But I think he does that to avoid anything from the NCAA.
Oh, for sure.
He's already served time from the NCAA. They're not going to slap him again.
It was a self-imposed and then a Big Ten one. NCAA hasn't touched him yet.
I don't know. I mean, should happen. If it did happen, it wouldn't happen to a nicer guy, asterisk. But at the same time, I think, unfortunately, I agree with Phil on this one. I think if he stays, nothing happens, because how would that look that one of your teams won the national championship? Then you say, okay, thanks. Here's a 7-figure fine, or here's scholarship losses, or here's bowl suspension.
Show loss.
Optics would be bad to hit your national championship winning team with that.
The optics are bad anyway. I want to see how this is going to affect officiating during that game.
Marty, I think you're looking at this through Ohio State colored glasses.
Yeah, but still, integrity. If you played them this year and they scouted you, how do you feel about them?
It's
Saban even said this stuff. He wouldn't let his kids use their iPads.
It's not anything that anybody else doesn't do. The other thing that will fix this problem, or the ability for people to do this in the future,
helmets, radios.
Yes, and they've already tested that during the bowl game season this year, and that's coming.
That's the big positive to come out of this.
Yeah.
Although if they get rid of the funny signs on the sidelines, that's going to be a big part of college football that I love gone.
Yeah.
There's nothing better than seeing an Urkel call sign.
Did I do that?
Yeah, if it gets rid of the giant bed sheets that are protecting people, then covering up the signs, then I'm all for it.
Oh, wait, what team was doing that? Oh, yeah, the one that cheated the most.
They all do it. Everybody has those giant sheets up trying to cover up things.
Ignore the man behind the curtain.
Yes. Before we wrap up, and started to touch on this a little bit in the first half of the show. I still find it fascinating that the Pac-2 exists. And the question I have for both of you is if what's happened in Washington happened last year, would the Pac-2 even be a thing, or are we still talking about the Pac-12 in its previous form at that point? Does all that craziness that's happened over the last year even happen?
I'm going to quote Thanos and say, I am inevitable. The mismanagement of that conference from top to bottom was going to result in the breakup of it. Their future is to say, hey, Florida State, you want to come over here? You could start winning right away. And then soon after you come, we're going to grab a couple others and round it back out. But
I read an interesting article about this the other day. If Washington had won the national championship last year, do ESPN or Fox or whomever make the financial offer that keeps them viable at that point? And then we're not having this discussion about them completely going away.
nope, they don't care about the time slots they play in.
And I just think that you compare the two conferences, right? The Big Ten versus the Pac-12. I think regardless of what Washington did last year, regardless of what Washington, Oregon have done this season, I think there's no way that does not happen. I mean, I think that the writing was on the wall. The Pac-12 has been objectively bad over the last 5. You look at the history between the two conferences, the statistics, the rivalries. Washington and Oregon needed something bigger, and I think Big Ten offered them that. And I think that with this being a conference game preview for next year, I think Florida State is watching very intently to this, and I think that maybe not this year, but I think within the next 3 years, Florida State will be absent from the ACC, and I think they're going to use this as a model to see what Washington and Oregon did. But to answer your question, nothing could have prevented this from happening.
Well, dovetailing off of that, Marty,
It's about the time slots they're playing in.
well, dovetailing off of that, and Jada brought up Florida State. I think the problem Florida State's facing right now is who wants them. The SEC's already said they don't need them, they don't want them, because they've got other teams coming in, and the same thing for the Big Ten.
Could
Hey,
Florida State walk into the Big East and do some damage?
There is no
conference.
Oh, that area. You look at that, Big Ten, Big 12. I kind of agree with Phil on this one. Where do they fit that's not the ACC?
Okay, it's the Pac. They give the Pac the time zone they need to get a TV contract. They also can go in and be the skinniest kid at fat camp, because if they go over there, they're the belle of the ball.
Yeah, but you're also talking about a cross-country flight just to go play a game.
Yeah, that means jack to everybody else. I mean, look at the Big Ten. We're on the West Coast.
Yep. Can you imagine
See,
Oregon flying to
you
take
can
on
go to
Rutgers?
a Pac. You can go to a Big Ten game and see either ocean.
Yeah, the other part of that is getting a direct flight into Tallahassee from the West Coast is not so easy.
Yeah, that's not what they care about.
But then you think about the optics, like Phil said, who wants them? Washington or Oregon flying into Happy Valley. I mean, if I'm the Big Ten commissioner, that is very, very, very happy for me to see that happen. That's a conference game.
Won.
But
Yeah.
what I'm saying is, Florida
Nobody's
State
happy about going to Happy Valley because there's no hotels.
But I'm saying, but if you look at Florida State, nobody wants to go to Tallahassee, and nobody really wants Tallahassee to come to them because they've been so objectively bad over the last decade.
They've been average. But the other part of it, again, I will say this, the other part of it is getting to Tallahassee.
Yep.
It's not such an easy thing to do. There's nothing around it.
I wish John was here to defend himself. There might be just like we might have a one total podcast that's John just reacting to all the shit we're talking.
But I mean, when I was at Wake and we went down to Tallahassee, we drove a bus. That was a long trip, but that was back in the 90s. So not all of us could fly commercial back then.
Yeah, I could just see it now. Washington State driving from Spokane to Tallahassee via a bus. They would start on a Tuesday and get there sometime Thursday or Friday.
Well, with digital classes now, all the kids could be doing Zoom classes in there and then do it on the road. But yeah, that's not going to happen.
What are these classes you speak of?
Oh,
No, that's North Carolina. North
here
Carolina
you
is the
go,
one that
bringing up
doesn't know.
education during a football podcast. That's 2 weeks in a row we've done that.
It's my job.
Next thing you know, we're going to mention how Olympic sports kids are going to get screwed. All I know
Dogs
is
and
like
cats living together, mass hysteria.
you're going to start seeing a lot of stuff in the middle of the country. All of a sudden, there's going to be neutral site games that are equal distance flights from both teams. And hopefully they're smart enough to help out those Olympic kids and have just large group meets in the middle somewhere.
And we've talked about this before, where football's different. Football has that cache of money in their programs. You look at tennis, you look at field hockey, you look at, ice hockey, or some of these teams that have to travel back and forth that don't have those coffers. That's where that issue happens. And I think that's why Florida State going to the Pac just is not financially feasible for a school like Florida State. I just don't see it happening.
No, it's a nice thought, but no.
Yeah, it's not feasible for any non-rev sport at all.
Unless they go Notre Dame and go independent.
Yeah, I guess that's an option, but I think everybody's going to be there at some point in time. Guys, it's time to wrap things up here. We've gone on for quite a while here talking about playoffs, championships, who's moving, and everything else. When we come back the next time we see everybody, we'll know who the national champion is. And
possibly for a short time.
We'll find out what that means for things going forward. For Brother J-Dub, for Brother Marty, I am Brother Phil. We are the Online Sports Guys. Thank you for listening, everybody. Hopefully we will catch you again soon. Until then, have a great time. Enjoy. Bye.
Please like and subscribe. And check out our website at onlinesportsguys.com. Cheaters never prosper. Go Huskies.